All right, let's dive in. Today, we're grabbing our magnifying glasses and putting on our detective hats. We're on a quest to solve a mystery that probably feels a little too familiar. Why on earth does your company use that software? Let's crack the case. Seriously, haven't we all been there? You're fighting with some clunky, confusing piece of software, and you just think, who chose this? It feels so random, so frustratingly difficult. But the truth is, behind every good tech decision, there's a story. A case that was carefully investigated and solved. Today, we're going to learn how to do just that. So let's start with Section 1, when good tech goes bad. Time to examine the scene of the crime. Now, here's the first major clue, and it's a big one. The technology itself, it's almost never the real villain in the story. The real culprit is usually a flawed process, a bad investigation, or sometimes no investigation at all. It's not about the tool, it's about how you choose the tool. This brings us to the detective's official playbook. It's called an end-user needs assessment, and that's just a formal way of saying it's a step-by-step process to figure out what people actually need to do their jobs. It's about moving past guesswork and really digging into the details before you even think about a solution. Okay, so how does this investigation actually work? That brings us to Section 2, the 3-phase playbook. See, every good detective follows a procedure, and this case is no different. And here it is, the core of our mission, broken down into 3 phases: preparation, investigation, and decision. You can think of it like this. First, you size up the scene, then you gather all the evidence, and finally, you make your case and close it. Phase 1 is preparation, and let me tell you, this is absolutely the most critical step, and it's the one most people skip. This is where you figure out the real problem, not just the annoying symptoms. If you get this wrong, it's like you're investigating the wrong crime from the very beginning. Once your prep is solid, it's time for the investigation phase. You look at the current system, what's working, what's a total mess. And here's the key part. You have to investigate all the alternatives. The best answer isn't always some shiny new software. Sometimes it's just an upgrade, or maybe even a smarter workflow for the tools you already have. And finally, we get to the decision. This is where you take all that evidence you've gathered and start to model a potential solution. And that leads you to this really important crossroads, the build versus buy decision. Are you going to find a tool that's already out there, or do you need to create something totally new from scratch? Of course, no detective just waltzes into a case empty-handed. You need a toolkit. So Section 3 is all about the tools of the trade. First up, the project charter. Think of this as the official case file. It spells out everything in black and white, what you're trying to achieve, who's involved, and how long it's going to take. This single document is what keeps the whole investigation from spiraling into chaos. Now, what about getting information from your witnesses? The actual users. You've basically got 2 main methods. Interviews are fantastic for digging deep and getting those rich, nuanced details, but man, are they time-consuming. On the other hand, questionnaires let you survey a whole bunch of people really fast, but it's surprisingly hard to write a perfect, clear question. A smart detective knows which tool to use and when. So you've got a few potential solutions lined up. How do you pick one? Well, you've got to build a solid case, and that's where cost-benefit analysis comes in. This is the tool that lets you move past opinions and compare the cold, hard costs of a solution against the actual value it's going to bring. And it's pretty straightforward. On one side, you list out the costs, not just the price tag to buy it, but what it'll cost to run it every year. And on the other side, you have the benefits. Some are tangible, things you can count, like more revenue, but don't ever forget the intangible stuff, like better morale. That can be priceless. Now, here's a really crucial piece of detective wisdom, courtesy of Voltaire. It's so easy to get paralyzed trying to find the one flawless, perfect solution. But honestly, that's not usually how the real world works. And that leads us to this awesome concept, a satisficing solution. It's kind of a mashup of the words satisfy and suffice. The idea here isn't to find the single best option on planet Earth. It's about finding one that's good enough to solve the problem right here, right now. A practical solution that actually happens beats a perfect one that never leaves the drawing board. So, you've chosen your solution. You've cracked the case, right? Well, not quite. Now comes the hard part. You actually have to make it happen. This is Section 4, managing the mission. A successful rollout always follows a clear roadmap. It starts with a sharp definition of what you're doing and a really solid plan. Then you move into implementation. You constantly monitor how things are going. And finally, this is important, you officially terminate the project when it's done. But along the way, you have to watch out for a notorious project villain called scope creep. This is what happens when people start saying, hey, can we just add this one little thing? And those little things start to pile up, and suddenly your project is late and way over budget. A good project manager is ruthless about protecting the scope. And that brings us to the final act, the grand finale. It's about making sure all this detective work actually pays off. It's Section 5, sticking the landing. So, if you take one thing away from all this, let it be this. This whole process isn't really about the tech, it's about the people. The ultimate goal, the definition of success, is finding the right tech to solve the right problem for the right people. That's how you know you've truly closed the case. So the next time your company rolls out some new system, you'll be able to look at it like a detective. What clues do you see? Can you spot the fingerprints of a really thorough investigation? Or does it just look like another unsolved mystery? Thanks for joining the investigation today.